This is La Pizarra, a place where we explore creative minds in the entertainment industry on both sides of the mic and the camera. Here is your host, Nikki Mondellini.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of La Pizarra. My name is Nikki Mondellini. I'm your host, inviting you to explore creative minds in the entertainment industry on both sides of the camera and the mic. Today, we're going to talk to award-winning director Scott Rice. You can find him on social media as @ScottRice. He is also an associate professor for the film school at the University of Texas at Austin, and he has a production company called Two Shot West, also in Austin, Texas. We'll be talking about his creative process and also what he expects from actors when working on set. If you're a podcaster or you've been thinking about starting a podcast, I highly recommend the platform that has worked very well for me when it comes to recording interviews, and that's Squadcast. Especially because of its amazing Dolby sound quality, which gives you advanced audio processing features like dynamic audio leveling for increased quality and clarity, immersive experience with sound moving around you thanks to advanced spatial audio, improved sound clarity with noise canceling and echo reduction, optimized bandwidth to help ensure everyone stays connected, and advanced network resilience to help maintain good audio quality in challenging network conditions. And you can download the sessions in a format that is easy to edit, so post-production is faster and publishing is quicker. Or you can download the mixed and master files. Try it out for 7 days at no cost by visiting squadcast.fm/ref=La Pizarra. You will find this link in the description. And you can also record video on Squadcast, which you can easily download into any video editing software. Depending on your membership, you can record up to 10 hours or more per month. They also have a great feature that uses autosave while you're recording to keep all the content, even in the case of technical failures, or if you forget to hit record when you're starting a session. And since you can record from anywhere, a cloud backup is available when you're not able to download your audio and video files. And I will let you know that tech support is very reliable. They will get back to you within a couple of hours to troubleshoot any issues. Go ahead and start your 7-day free trial today at squadcast.fm/ref=La Pizarra. After your free trial, you can decide which membership level best fits your needs, and you can pay monthly or annually at a discounted price. Find out all the amazing things you can do with Squadcast by clicking on the link. Scott Rice is an Emmy Award and Addy Award-winning filmmaker and commercial director. He's worked with talent like Glenn Close, Favre, Matthew McConaughey, with whom he co-teaches a film course at the University of Texas, and he is the owner and executive producer of Two Shots West, a production company in Austin, Texas. Scott's narrative work holds a staggering film festival record of 300 official selections and 85 awards. He became the first person to be named as a finalist in 2 categories in the same year for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Student Academy Awards competition. His pre-thesis project, The Adventures of Matt, was a finalist in the documentary category, and his thesis, Perils of Nude Modeling, was a finalist in the narrative category. His films have been distributed on Comedy Central, Showtime, Hulu, Blockbuster, and PBS. He has also directed projects for A&E, the Mental Health Channel, MTV Networks, and Sony Pictures. Scott began his career as an animator and art director for Activision. He scripted the groundbreaking hit game Soldier of Fortune, and he has since written on assignment for Elizabeth Avalon from Spy Kids, among others. He specializes in comedy, storytelling, and visual effects. I linked to one of his amazing commercials in the show notes. You should definitely check that out, and you will see why all the Addy Awards for sure. So anyway, Scott, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm so happy that you joined because I have a bunch of questions, and I just wanted to kick off with, an amazing thing that I saw while I was researching for this interview, and I came across The Adventures of Matt. You made me cry. You made me laugh. You took me through every emotion possible. It's just amazing. And that was, your award-winning, your nomination. So that was really amazing. So anyway, I think that explains a little bit your origin and how it all came about and how you started to have this passion for storytelling and filmmaking. But I'll let you lead the way in telling me about all of that.
Well, how I got interested in movies is, I basically saw E.T. in 1982 when I was 9 years old, and I was the same age as the character Elliot in the story, and I really identified with him. And it's a really profound movie for a kid, and E.T. dies and he comes back, and there's all this wish fulfillment, and it just made my heart explode. And I decided at age 9, if I couldn't be a part of that fantasy, if it couldn't be real, that I wanted to be a part of making these fantasies. So that's when I decided. I told my parents, I want to be a film director, and they kind of chuckled, and it was an impossible dream because I was growing up in Columbus, Ohio, and didn't know how I was going to ever be a filmmaker. But I just stuck with it and never gave up, and here I am still doing it all these years later.
But it's amazing. I think it's just such a beautiful and special thing when you find your passion at such a young age. And there you go. And everything you do from that point on is going to be directed towards that. And you're going to find a way to make it happen, So I think it's amazing. And so let's get a little bit into the adventures of Matt, where your brother, Matt Rice, is the star, right? He ended up not being an actor, but he definitely was there, such a trooper with everything. So tell us about it, because it took 10 years to make that that film. Wow.
Well, we made a series basically of episodes called Mad Matt, where my brother was this Dennis the Menace type troublemaker, always getting into trouble with kind of the neighbor who was, this nasty older guy who didn't let Matt play in his yard. And that was our friend Mike Borden, who I'm still friends with. And we basically just made this action comedy over the course of 10 years, and we grew up on camera, on video camera. We shot them on VHS, and we couldn't edit, so I had to push the button, do the take, and it was all edited in camera, like push the button right at the right moment when the shot was done. And you couldn't make a mistake because we couldn't edit. So Matt had to get his lines right. And of course, he didn't get his lines right a lot of times. So I'm like, I'll just make him into an action star who doesn't really talk much. So the series was very action oriented. We're driving around on snowmobiles and running over each other and doing stunts. And we wanted to be stuntmen, when we were young. So, and we loved Raiders of the Lost Ark. We loved Indiana Jones and doing stunts. So that was pretty much what the Adventures of Mad Matt was. And then when I went to grad school, I decided, hey, I'm going to repurpose these old VHS home movies and this Mad Matt series we'd created, and kind of tailor a story about growing up, a personal documentary about growing up and growing older and growing apart, and tell a story that was kind of a love letter to my little sister who had passed away. So making that movie was sort of my therapy, like coming to terms with her death and coming to the terms with growing older and not being around my family full time like you are when you're growing up. And that was that film, and that was also one of the movies that really made me interested in doing documentaries as well. So I do narrative and docs. So.
And documentaries, yes. I mean, it's definitely a very touching and very moving documentary. And so anyone who wants to watch it, they can go on your Vimeo account, right, and see that. Yeah. And I'll also link to that in the show notes. So anyway, let's talk about how you are. I mean, you're known as an actor's director, so what are some of the things that you expect from actors, or that makes a great actor-director relationship?
Well, I think the biggest thing that makes a director an actor's director is as a director who's really interested in actors and interested in the craft of acting. Some directors are a little more technical. They really don't want to think too hard about what the actors are going through. And it's really about empathy. It's really about empathizing with actors and the craft of acting. And acting is terribly hard. And I think a lot of people take that for granted. So to be an actor's director, you have to take acting classes. You have to read books about acting and directing actors. Here's a really good one I have here. It's called Directing Actors by Judith Weston. I really recommend it. If you wanna sort of understand the craft of acting, and if you've done your homework, if you've taken some acting classes and you've kind of like been in the spotlight, like you're doing a scene in class and the spotlight turns on you and you got to act and you have all these people looking at you, you really feel how incredibly hard it is. Just something so simple like remembering your lines. I mean, it is so hard, and it's so hard to be in the moment. So if you've done your homework in that regard, I think you're an actor's director, because you'll just immediately be empathetic toward the actors and you'll kind of understand their needs. And the actors just pick up on that. They can kind of tell when you're given the right kind of, like when you give them a playable direction, you know what a playable direction is. They're like, oh, this director's done their homework. Cool. And then they respect you, and it makes, and you're able to get better performances, basically.
Of course, yeah. That's it's so nice that you put it that way, because as actors, we're taught to just do whatever we're expected to do from the director, and whatever they say, we just have to respond, and we just have to do what they ask for. But so many times that communication is not very open, and sometimes there's a lot of factors that go into it. Sometimes directors have a lot of pressure from producers, and so there's a lot of elements that can really hinder that communication. So
yeah. Well, another thing I'll add real quick is, in terms of the actor-director relationship, is if the director can really be a pillar of stability for the actors, that helps so much, because the director is getting there's a lot of pressure from the producers, from the studio, from the ad agency, whatever you're making.
Yeah.
And the director can't show that, and especially in front of the actors. The actors have to feel protected. You don't want your own stress and anxiety to rub off on the actors. So someone said to me earlier in my career, said, Scott, you're really a pillar of stability. And that always stuck with me. I'm like, yes, that's what I want to be. I always want to be a pillar of stability, even if you have to fake it a little bit, because it's important. It doesn't mean that you're not authentic on set, you're not authentic with your crew, but you really have to stay focused and not let those anxieties show. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, as directors, gosh, you really have to have such an even keel, an even mind for just that, just managing everything that goes around and all the pressures from the production. And then you get what are some of the most challenging scenes that you've had to do now in the terms of maybe obstacles, like, I don't know, the weather, or maybe, they decided to cancel your location at the last minute, or that kind of thing,
Yeah. Well, some of the biggest troubles I've had is, I live in Austin, Texas, and it gets very hot in the summers. So when we're shooting outside in the heat, that is tough. I am from the Midwest. I'm better with cold. I'm not great with heat. So that's tough. It's hard to concentrate when physical conditions get difficult. It's hard when, something goes wrong. You lose a location, or you lose an actor. I've had COVID times, I've had a couple actors, I've lost them because they've tested positive, and we'd have to switch out last second. Oh. And you really have to really be light on your feet. Scenes that involve anything sensitive, like crying, emotion, are always difficult. It's very important, I think, to protect the actors from the distractions of what's going on with the set and the crew and stuff, so they can be in the moment. So I try very hard to kind of keep them focused. And then any scenes involving nudity are tough, because you close the set. Again, you want to very much protect the actor. So those, I'd say, are the toughest challenges for me that I've run into.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
Funny enough, kids and animals, I have not had any trouble with kids and animals, and I work with both a lot. So I've been lucky.
That was going to be my next question, because you just did the short film My Monster, and that's I saw the trailer. That's such a touching movie, such nice scenes, and the images with the kids. So how was it, working with kids?
Well, I work with kids a lot. I'm kind of known as someone who works well with children. I've done a lot of commercials also with children. And Working with kids, it's all about the casting. You just have to cast it right. If you can't go, well, I love the look of that child, but they seem unable to focus, but I'm going to cast them anyway. No. That's bad. You really have to just cast the child who can do the performance and who's trained enough and who's determined enough and disciplined enough to really get on set and be in the moment. And kids, if you cast it right, kids are great actors because they're so great at make-believe. So the kids are the best actors. So I love working with kids. And with animals, it's also with casting. You just got to find the right trainer. You got to be real specific about what your need is, what you need the animal to do. You make sure they're trained for it. You schedule it at the right time in the day for that to work. Maybe you cast 2 animals in case the first one doesn't work out. We sometimes do that with children as well, like 6 years old and under. Sometimes you get twins. So if one drops out, the other one's good to go.
Yep.
And it's really about planning and casting right. And if you do it right, you'll be good.
Yeah, for sure. Now, can you talk a little bit about the script to screen program that you're teaching with Mathew McConaughey at UT? Because I've seen some great reviews about that. There's a very long waiting list, but it's such like a hands-on program that is really different from other programs. How did that come about?
Well, that came about, I guess, a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Mathew McConaughey mentioned to the department at one time, hey, it would be cool if we could do a class where the students studied the films I'm currently working on, kind of in real time. And it was kind of like, well, how do we figure that out? And I think one summer Mathew called the department and said, hey, I'm down in Louisiana shooting Free State of Jones, bring the students. and the department was like, oh, wow, he's really serious about this. What do we do? So they called me and they said, hey, can you talk to Mathew McConaughey, get his ideas, and basically structure a class out of what he had in mind. So I spent an hour on the phone with him, and he really thought about it. He thought it all out. And he had this idea for this class, and I took all these notes, and I kind of developed a curriculum around his notes and how we could do it and make it real and how we could grade the students and all that good stuff, projects we could give them. And that's how the class was born, and it's been around since 2015, and it's really been a joy to do.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, the students, the testimonials that I've heard, I mean, everybody's just raving about it, that they're just so excited about this course. And there's also a foundation that gives scholarships for it, isn't it?
The Longhorn Creators Foundation basically allocates funds to students who create final projects and want funding for them. So the students basically pitch their projects at the end of the semester. All the students vote on sort of the best presentations, and then the Longhorn Creators Foundation gives grants to students, and then they go off and make their projects. So it's really special. I mean, we do a lot of, we offer a lot of experiential learning opportunities in the class. One is the ability to actually apply for a real grant that you could win. The other is getting on sets, like getting on my own set. So if I'm shooting, I have students come on the set. And another is that we work on projects with Mathew McConaughey. Sometimes we go shoot behind the scenes on projects he's doing. We cut class sizzle reels. We have our own science show, broadcast series that we're doing with the Environmental Science Institute called Hot Science. So we're actually making a TV show in the class as well.
Oh my
So it's been really exciting, like beyond all the studying of Mathews films and getting to meet with Richard Linklater and Jeff Nichols and on. We do a lot of other things as well.
You do, and also musicals, right? You shot a commercial with what was it, from High School Musical? No, what was it?
Well, we did a commercial we shot out in Provo that was a musical, and we've shot with a couple choreographers, and I've done some music videos as well. So I like making musicals. So we get on the students on the set of those as well, and we just have a blast. I mean, it's so important. Students are kind of in this classroom, and then they're on student films, but they don't quite get on, they don't really get on a set that has a little bit more of the scale that's sort of run in a professional way. And that's really valuable to expose the students to. And we also expose them to the films that Mathew's working on. So he will shoot exclusive behind the scenes stuff on the sets he's working on, and then he'll do impromptu lessons directly to camera to the students. So we get them on set on Hollywood films, on commercials. We try to get the students exposed to how the real industry works as much as we can.
Of course. I mean, and hence the very long waiting list to get on that program. Of course.
Yeah, it's competitive.
So, yeah. And how long is it? Is it like a 3-year program? Is it...
well, it's just a class. So basically, it's one class within the RTF department at the University of Texas at Austin. And it's an advanced class, so there's some prerequisites that are required. You can only get into the class if you're an RTF major. So that's how you get in. So it's really one class. We've been talking about developing other classes, but Script to Screen is one class, and a lot of times students kind of take it as juniors or seniors, kind of later in their undergraduate career. And I also have seats for grad students. So students in the RTF program who are in the MFA program, they're welcome to take the class as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And now, Scott, let's talk a little bit about some of the work that you've done also for the mental health series. And you've had some of those being on PBS, right, and the mental health channel. And so how did you start doing those shows?
Well, Harry Lynch is the guy who started Arcos Films, and he had this idea of a channel, an online channel with free content that was all about mental health. So he started mentalhealthchannel.tv, and he asked me to come on board and direct and a lot of the episodes and creative direct other episodes that other directors were making. And I spent years working on this project, and it's really awesome. And then we also created a broadcast series called Stories of the Mind that played on PBS nationally. And, I'd always been sort of a mental health advocate myself, going through some of my own struggles with depression and anxiety, like a lot of artists do. Yes. We all got something.
We all do.
And it really was a labor of love. And, I feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to work on it.
Well, that's amazing. And can you tell me a little bit about how that has influenced you or has it changed you in a way while working on this series?
Well, it's changed me in a few ways. I mean, the series really, one of the goals of the Mental Health Channel was to fight the stigma and to kind of get rid of this idea that we can't talk about mental health and it's scary to talk about and it's kind of like negative. And so I got way better. I was already, sort of interested in talking about mental health, but boy, that really freed me up, sitting with and talking to people with real struggles with schizophrenia or a bipolar disorder. I learned that, wow, my own struggles really pale in comparison to some of these other much more serious disorders. And then to see these folks be able to manage their disorders and really live really healthy, fulfilling lives was so inspiring. And it inspired me. It's like, I can overcome some of my challenges. And also, I think going through the experience of working for the channel, it made me think about, hey, how can I use my talents to better the lives of others? How can I go off and work on a show that is going to help educate, that's going to help, dispel the stigma surrounding mental health. It made me think about my career as something a little less self-serving and a little more other-centered, a little bit more mission-driven career. So the Mental Health Channel was sort of where I started like shifting my career and doing projects that I think had a little bit more social relevance.
Yeah. I think that's so important because, as you said, there is a stigma around it, and it's one of the things that could help avoid so many tragedies, so many bad things within a family or, out in the public, talking about mass shooting and other things,
Yeah.
The more a light is shed on prevention and just help in general for mental health, that's going to be really a big difference, So I'm glad that you did that series. How can people find that? Is it like on demand or?
Yeah, go to mentalhealthchannel.tv and all the content is right there at your fingertips.
Perfect.
Totally free. Stream it, anything you want right there. And you can search by category too. So if you're interested in a certain disorder, bipolar, social anxiety, whatever, you click on that and it'll show you the content that is related to that subject.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Now, Scott, here's another question. Have you made any of the movies that you felt that you wanted to do or that you envisioned when you were a kid?
Yes, I think I have. I've certainly written them. There's a number of scripts I've written that I'm still trying to get produced. But yeah, I mean, I feel very lucky in my career, especially on the commercial side. I mean, I've done commercials with giant spider monsters and apocalyptic scenes and stunts and people flying through windows.
They are amazing.
Crazy stuff.
Yes,
and that's all the kind of stuff, when you brought up Mad Matt, that's the kind of stuff I made as a kid. So I have not changed that much in terms of what appeals to me and the kind of work I create. I really like doing funny things, humorous things, gag-related, visual gags, stunt work, funny, quirky VFX and stuff. And so I feel very fulfilled. I feel like a big kid who's still doing what he did as a kid, playing in the sandbox, playing with every day I go to work. I feel like I'm just like sitting down on my room, my bedroom floor playing with Star Wars figures. There's really not much difference between the work that I do and the joy I got from playing and using my imagination when I was a child. So I feel like I certainly have done a lot of things that I dreamed that I would do, but there's a lot more to go. So I'm only maybe halfway through my career.
No, but definitely I think that you come from a place where you know that you always push your boundaries and you're not afraid to do it. And you have those visions and you keep at it. And I think that when it goes like that without those preconceived limitations, that's only when you achieve great things, That's only when you push yourself. And yes, we have to have a bit of the kid mentality, of that fantasy that anything is possible.
Yeah, you got to go in a little naive because the business is very hard. If someone sat me down as a 9-year-old and told me all the reasons why I probably wasn't going to make it, I might have not followed that dream. I might have said, okay, yeah, that doesn't sound very practical actually. But you really just got to have that crazy thing. Like, I just want to do this. I'm going in a little naive and I'm never going to give up. And so for me, I was lucky in that there was only one thing I ever wanted to do with my life. And I never had to kind of shift that. And because there was only one thing I ever wanted to do, I really couldn't imagine anything else. So it's kind of one of those things where you just like, I'm just going to keep chipping away at it no matter what. And the thing is, if you have that tenacity, that stick-to-itiveness, that's everything in this business because it takes way longer than you think. I tell my students all the time. In fact, I talked to a former student of mine who graduated about 10 years ago. And he's a little frustrated. He's not quite where he wants to be, but he's directing and he's getting paid to direct. And, none of us are quite where we want to be. But I remind people that you shouldn't get discouraged when it's been 10 years and you're not quite where you want to be. It's like, no, that's normal. It takes a lot of time. It takes more time than you think it will. And that's okay. As long as you're enjoying the journey, that's okay. Exactly.
So would you say that that's one of the main things that you want students to have that as a takeaway when you work with them, when you teach them, like in general?
I think that's a big one. I mean, another one is something that McConaughey always says, which is there's more than one right answer. And I think students sometimes, they really agonize about every creative decision they make. And because they think there's one perfect answer, and that's actually not true. There's more than one right answer, and it's more important that you just make a decision and move forward. even if the decision turns out to be a mistake. And sometimes we get paralyzed with indecision, and perfectionism is the death of creativity. So it's more important to make something, it's a little imperfect, you learn from it, you move on, you make your next thing. It's more important to stay busy, and also work begets work, even spec work. So even if someone's not paying you to make something, go make something, because the universe is gonna send someone to pay you to make the next thing. It's just weird how it works. And all the projects I've done on spec sort of turned into paid projects or led to the next job. So I would just encourage people to stop being so precious about their work, make a decision. There's more than one right answer, and make the next thing, move on, and make the thing after.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice, definitely. Yeah. And is there someone that inspired you, or that you looked up to while growing up? You know, you had your mind made up and you talked about E.T., but would you say, you know, someone like that specific that you're like, oh yeah, I want to be like that person, or someone that talked to you and you know, just helped you along?
Sure. Well, there's two people. One is Steven Spielberg was my idol. So obviously E.T. So I always wanted to emulate his career. I like that he made really positive films, life-affirming films that he could make popcorn movies, but underneath they were always about something, in particular things I could relate to, especially some of the sub-themes of family running through his films. So, and I just love the artistry of what he did. So I kind of, you know, he was kind of my idol. But then my grandfather, who I called Peepaw, who was a football coach. So he wasn't a film director, but he looked like a film director. He's always, running around. He's like the general. He's got his clipboard. And his football team really admired him. He was really positive. He was really down to earth. He was very authentic. And he was beloved amongst his students and his players. So I kind of wanted to do that as a director, but then also as a teacher. Kind of be very authentic with my students, very authentic with my crew and the actors with whom I work with. And so he was kind of the other person who inspired me. I kind of try to channel him as I think about him a lot as I, decide on the decisions I'm going to make and how I act around the crew and stuff like that. Yeah.
Of course. Oh, that's so special to have that person in your mind and knowing that they have played an important part in your decision and in the way you grow up and the way you look at things, you know? So
Absolutely.
that's amazing. So you have the script to screen class, you have Two Shot West, you do your film work. How do you manage to do everything and still be so positive and not be overwhelmed with the amount of work that you do?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, I can always do better at that. What I feel like I do get overwhelmed, and I don't really take enough vacations. I don't take time off. There is an advantage in that I don't have a family. I'm not married. I don't have kids. So a lot of the time I would devote to family, I'm just channeling into my students. They're kind of my adopted children in a way. And that's how I kind of scratch that itch of feeling like a father a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I guess I wouldn't say that I do a great job balancing it, because it's hard. And I talk to filmmakers all the time who struggle because they have to pay the bills, so they do the job, they do the film jobs they have to take to put food on the table, and then the problem is they don't have time to work on their passion projects. And I'm kind of similar that way, where I've struggled to really focus on, I got to finish that rewrite because I want to try and get this movie made. But I'm over here doing commercials, and then I'm also teaching, which I love. It's very fulfilling to teach. So I struggle with that. But I think the bottom line is, as long as you're doing what you enjoy, as long as you're happy, so you can be really busy and exhausted, but just happy and blissful doing it. That's kind of me. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of like, it's all good, because I also like being busy. Sometimes when I go on vacation, I'm like, I get a little like, man, I really should be working right now.
Yes,
I
can
I'm
relate.
a little bit of a workaholic,
Yes,
it's hard to relax. I'm some people are just wired to work. Yes, I think especially artists, sometimes they just want to create like that. They get their joy not from resting, but more from creating. And I think that's okay. I think it's bad if you don't enjoy that. But if you get your joy from creating, why not be busy? Why not spend your time constantly creating? I don't think I'm going to be on my deathbed saying, wow, I wish I went on more vacations. I really don't think so. Like, I value making stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, as long as you're happy there,
Yeah. So I think you got to follow your muse and follow what kind of gives you joy.
And I think it's a little bit hard to understand for people who are not in a creative business or who don't go into their passion, it's hard, but I have that sometimes with my husband, for example. He's like, but how? No, people stop working at 5 or 6 p.m. and that's it. And you're there until 10 o'clock and whatever. I'm like, well, I like what I do,
Yeah,
really
it's like you wouldn't be there if you didn't love it.
Exactly.
We do what we like. Yeah, absolutely.
We do, and that feeds us completely. Yeah,
absolutely.
So what is the next big project or, something? Of course, you have several at the same time, but one that you are really going at right now that we might see soon?
Yeah, well, there's a couple feature films I can't talk about yet, but I'm hoping that those get funded and get made. They're independent films, they're smaller pictures. But there's adventure, there's comedy, there's I like to make crowd pleasers. So my goal is to get these movies made and then continue doing the commercials and PSAs I've done and some of the socially relevant projects like Hot Science, which is all about STEM education and getting kids excited about going into the sciences, and then continuing to teach. So but really, the next big thing is the feature side of what I want to do, and features. I love movies. They're my jam. Like I'm not. I don't watch a ton of television. I really like old school making movies and feature films. So that's I hope to have a feature coming out in the next year and a half. So that's my goal.
Well, definitely people should stay in touch with your social media to follow you. I mentioned it at the beginning, but I'm going to say it again. It's at Scott Rice Director on Instagram. And so that's a way for, because you keep updating that with commercials and the stuff that you're doing. So that's a good way to be in touch and to learn about what you're doing. Scott, I'm going to thank you so much for giving me the time for this interview. Really, I appreciate it. You've definitely opened our minds into all of the things that you do, all the importance of just being there doing what you love. And oh my gosh, it's really amazing to see all of that you've accomplished. And stemming from the adventures of Mad, which I'm just going to say again, I mean, everybody has to see that. It's just a great documentary, a great way to see your beginnings and how you were really into it. Do your brother and sister still talk to you?
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah, okay. We're very close, actually. Yes, okay. I was definitely the bossy older brother, but I've chilled out a lot since then. Yes.
Yeah, because it was funny because your mom mentioned something like, "Well, yeah, we kept going to the ER because."
Because Matt would always have a new scar on his head, from doing the stunts.
The stunts and the snowmobile and the whole thing. But I think that also prepared him to play in the Rose Bowl,
That's true. Yeah, he was a very successful football player. It gave him some grit, for sure.
Yes, definitely. That's a good precursor for all of that. Anyway, well, thank you, Scott. It was really amazing to talk to you, and we'll just keep in touch and watch out for all your wonderful new projects.
Well, thank you, Nikki. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on La Pizarra. Want to listen to more episodes? Visit lapizarrapodcast.com and download the app, where you'll be able to join the community and get access to exclusive material. Tune in next week for another interesting interview.